Yo, yo, welcome, beautiful souls, beautiful beings. Welcome back to Crystalline Temple. Okay. You know what's crazy to think about? That this whole time, after everything I have experienced, the burnouts, the friendships that didn't stick, the exhaustion that I couldn't explain, and even the way I felt like I had to rehearse conversations in my head before I had a conversation with somebody, I was like studying for a social exam, like studying for social interactions. I still kind of do now, I'm not gonna lie. The grocery stores felt like war zones, and they still do. Shout out to headphones. The lights that felt like very, very aggressive for no reason, and now I have a migraine. The fluorescent lights. Even the way I thought I just needed more time to heal, fix more, regulate more, be less intense, as they say. Anyway, so yeah, this whole time I was autistic. Newsflash. And I didn't find out until I was 25. Let that sink in. Okay. I spent 25 years trying to fix traits that were never flaws to begin with. They were just the tism. It was just the tism the whole time. And no one noticed at all. Even through all of that, I wasn't broken. I was just unrecognized. And getting diagnosed at 25 didn't necessarily change who I am. It really explained who I am and made everything click. So, growing up, I didn't think I was autistic. I would say maybe like more so my adult years, I questioned it, but we'll get to that later. I just thought that I was too sensitive, too emotional, too reactive, too intense, whatever. Um, this is how everybody else labeled me. And, to an extent, I was sensitive. Also, hear me out. What child is not sensitive to the world? This is new. And I feel like demonizing your child or your relative who is a child or any loved one who is a child and saying, "Oh, you're just too sensitive and you're so emotional." Damn well they should be, because life is not easy out here for a kid and the world is overwhelming and overstimulating. So I'm going to leave that there. But I grew up in a household where being emotionally seen wasn't even a thing. There were just roles, there was abandonment wounds, there was dynamics, and there was chaos. That's really all there really was to it. So it was all those things, but it wasn't curiosity. No one really tried to understand how my brain worked, how my noggin worked. And I guess to an extent you really can't understand everybody's noggins and be in everybody's mind, but we live in a neurotypical world where it's expected to be one neurotype. And if you don't fit this neurotype, then there's something wrong with you. So, once again, nobody tried to understand how my brain worked. And when a child is not understood, then they do not get assessed. It's crazy to think about because my uncle, I was living with my grandparents, and my uncle, he was autistic. And it's crazy how they overlooked me. But I understood as well, I'm the grandchild. I'm not their child technically. So I'm just going to leave that there. I was sheltered. I stayed to myself. I was introverted. I still am. I didn't have a big group of friends, and people called me weird because I didn't have a lot of friends. I had maybe one homie every grade level, and I was fine with that. I want to just say, though, sometimes isolation isn't being antisocial. Sometimes it's simply just regulation. And the more that I'm understanding myself and I've been reflecting on my life, I've been realizing, like, oh, I just need to regulate. Um, the way that I perceive everything is from a overstimulated point of view, and I can't necessarily change that. I can't turn down the dial of the noise or the volume of the noise of the world or of other people or other people's emotions and energies, and there's just so much going on. So sometimes being alone is the most regulating thing I can do. Tone, facial expressions, textures, lighting, noise, social hierarchy, implied meaning all at once. That's not shyness. Okay, that's bandwidth. And I was always called shy. I just am overwhelmed and composed. Internally, I am going crazy, but externally, I am composed. Um, And because of all these things, I was bullied. I was called too sensitive, once again, too emotional, too dramatic. And I wasn't dramatic. I was just precise and overwhelmed. And autistic brains process language differently as well. Um, it took me a long time to think about what I wanted to say before I said it. I'd stutter sometimes. My words would come out jumbled, but they would make sense to me. And when someone would make a joke that's actually disrespectful, I would literally process the words they say as literal. And when I react because they say something offensive and it's a joke or they're being sarcastic, um, that's when I react and get labeled as sensitive. But what if I was just accurate? Like, you're just literally, I'm just taking things as they're supposed to be. But I think also a part of masking, the thing that I learned how to do well was be sarcastic. And I'm like, oh, is this what we say? If we want to say something that's true and not make it offensive, we just say it in a sarcastic manner. And I often misunderstood relationships because healthy ones weren't modeled to me until adulthood, sadly so. So inconsistent attachment feels very destabilizing for me, especially when your brain relies on patterns for safety. What looks clingy? Get out of here, bug. Hold on, let me munch on my burger before this bug gets it. I was saying before I got distracted by the fly, what looks clingy or even detached can simply just be a nervous system that is seeking and searching for stability. They say you should chew your food like 30 times, so I'm trying to count, but sometimes I only get to like 12. I do eat too fast. I also didn't consistently live with my parents. I grew up with my grandparents, and I feel like when you're autistic, stability matters so much, and routine matters, and predictability and caregivers matter as well. And so I always grew up feeling like I was anticipating being rescued from my environment. Yummy. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Yummy in my tummy. Yummy in my tummy. Mm-mm. This fly is gonna land on this plate and be like, what happened? And I ate it. Anyways, moving along. I begin distracted. So, like I was saying, I was always anticipating being rescued, being picked up. When rescue seems unpredictable, then anticipation is what your nervous system just stays in. And being in a constant state of anticipation is not comfortable. That's anxiety. And I wasn't necessarily unstable. I was just always bracing for something, clenching. And I think that's also why I have like a lot of anxiety now and gut issues, because I felt like I always had to brace myself for like something unexpected and that I was anticipating to happen. I lived with a very bipolar woman. So it's just like blah blah blah. All of it makes sense. And obviously these are some things that happen just from living in a toxic household and the way our brain develops as children. It all also makes sense. No wonder I'm 25 figuring it out. And I didn't realize what I was doing until I learned about autism more. I've always been hyper observant, but autistic brains are kind of naturally wired for pattern recognition. My pattern recognition game, it be down packed. Not necessarily for myself sometimes. Sometimes I'd be like, wait a minute. I feel like my external pattern recognition is there. I'm still working on it internally. But I've always paid attention to tone, behavior shifts, energy changes, subtle energy changes in people, spaces. And it has really affected me a lot. It's like I'm always just in a state of reading everything, and in unpredictable environments that became like a survival mechanism. So I think that's also something that I have as well. I learned to predict reactions, read rooms, map people. I know more about people than they think I do. And that's a little bit oftentimes more than not. I'm not saying I'm able to read people's minds, but I can read people's energies quite well. I would say so myself. But just because I can do all those things doesn't mean I'm gifted socially. Masking followed me everywhere, and I didn't realize I was masking. I was just like, okay, people respond this way, this person responds this way, and in order to keep myself feeling safe and comfortable, I have to put on a mask because I already know from being at home and some few interactions that people aren't willing to understand me or accept me for who I am. So this is what I have to do. So whether it was work, friendships, or school, I was masking, and it was suppressing natural behaviors to blend in, essentially, I would say. I wouldn't define it as deception. I wasn't necessarily a liar. I was a very honest person, but I had to put on a super suit to be human and to interact with neurotypical people and social and fit into social norms, which is yuck. Once again, I think it's just survival for a lot of people, but I don't think we really know we're doing it until we truly understand ourselves. This bug is killing me. Get away from my juice. Testing me. Anyways, my brain literally has like 44 tabs open all at one time. Did that sound weird? What is that smell? What is that other sound in the background? Am I smiling correctly? Are they mad at me? Am I overthinking this? Is this an intrusive thought? Is this my thoughts? Aliens. So it's like that constant monitoring of my mental state and how I respond and react in social settings, even, is super exhausting. Then there's rumination, my enemy. I feel like I replay conversations thoroughly over and over and over again, observing every tone, every definition, even the timing of like, is this in person? Is this an email? Is this a text? And if so, why didn't we just have a conversation about this in person? Why does this have to be a conversation had in person? Am I making it a big deal? Is this okay to have a conversation over text? Clearly they know that I can't read their tone through message. So it's like autistic brains struggle with ambiguous social closure. I'm not saying all autistic people. I can only speak from my experience. We just continue to analyze and analyze and analyze. And then I'm constantly being told, you're just overthinking it. But then time goes by. It turns out I was right the whole time because I was reading all these underlining subtle shifts. But, at the moment, I was just overreacting, even though I was low-key right. I'm not saying I'm right all the time. Sometimes I do be overthinking stuff, but majority of the time, it's not for no reason, because it's like once you study people and their patterns, you're just like waiting. And then you talk to people in person, they say something, and then they act like they're cool, and then later on they send you a message or some shit, and they're like, you triggered me. I'm like, what did I do? Why didn't you tell me in person? Socializing annoys me because of that, because I'm always like, okay, I have to get to know this person, and I'm gonna be constantly ruminating over our experience, my interaction with them, what they were doing. I'm reading way too many damn things, and to add trauma into that loop, no bueno, no bueno. I feel like when you add trauma to the loop of all that, it just intensifies everything, because now you're in a sense of survival and you're like, okay, if I don't do this way, then XYZ will happen. And so experiences just don't pass through me. I have to digest my experiences. And I have to digest my experiences very slowly. Once again, solitude isn't antisocial for me. It's literally recovery, because it takes me so long to digest certain experiences, energies, new information. Especially if it's not something I'm relatively interested in, and human socialization is not one of those things. It's just easier being in my solitude. But let me say this crystal clear, okay? Crystal clear. Autism does not make me less intelligent. Doesn't make any autistic person less intelligent. But my intelligence is uneven. I would say that. What do I mean by this is like, okay, so autistic cognitive profiles are often spiky. Strong in some areas, challenging in others. What I'm trying to say is, if I care about something, I will excel in it. And if I'm not interested, my brain kind of resists. Not because I'm lazy necessarily, it's just neurology. My executive functioning, I wish I would have known about this years ago. As I've been discovering more about my diagnosis, executive functioning is like up there with my day-to-day life challenges. And simply starting a task is hard, switching my focus is hard, planning, tracking time. And another thing people don't realize is that us folks with autism often need things explained step by step by step. And so certain things are just more frustrating because I'm like, damn, now I got to fill in the gaps. I got to find another way to learn this thing because you're teaching me this is this, but there's no order. And so it doesn't make sense to me. And now I got to put in more time and effort to create my own order and understanding of this thing, which is challenging because they expect you, especially in school, to have everything like, yep, have this down. And in a week, we're going to do a quiz, blah, blah, blah. And then on the midterm, you're going to have to remember everything. And I'm just like, but there is no like order or steps. And so now it's even more challenging. I end up finding a creative way, but it just takes me more time because I have to do that other step that neurotypicals might not have to do. It's just when you give vague instructions, it feels like there's missing data. And when someone says just do it like this, I'm just like, okay, what's step one? Where do I begin? Where do I end? Like, it should tell a story, right? And so I'm realizing I have to create stories in order to remember things. And it's like it's a very unique approach, but it is extra. But you know, the extra steps, you know, that clarity in itself reduces anxiety. So it's much appreciative. Explicit explanations reduce cognitive load. I'm already over functioning mentally, so that's the least they could do. But once again, we don't really live in a world that's like, this is how we teach people who are on the spectrum or on a different wave of neurodiversity. We just teach it one way and we expect everybody to be good at that one way. But I digress. I've realized that education, even work, and daily tasks have been very challenging for me because I don't necessarily understand certain social concepts. Um, in fact, I'm grateful that I'm just in school right now because managing work on top of that is just like, ugh. Managing working for somebody else is different. I'm, you know, pursuing my passions on the side, but even that takes so much time, energy, and effort. So anyone who supports me, it's so appreciated because it's already more challenging for me as is. But I feel like certain people are just like, you know, you just need to put in the same amount of work that we all put in. I'm like, first of all, I don't function like you. Especially the boomers, they be annoying. They be like, back in my day, we had to do all this and blah, blah, blah. We're strong. Like, nah, you guys just endured the most for what and for what? No wonder we got the tism because y'all didn't relax. Anyways, don't come for me. I'm just saying. Because I have to decode the hidden steps, essentially, the decoding becomes exhausting. And work was like masking. I was like, okay, do this, this, and this. But then there's social performance, noise, fluorescent lights, overstimulation, dealing with people who are knowledgeable about something or have issues, or then having to interact in a group setting and people don't know how to be a team and people feel some type of way about everybody. And that's why I hated work and I always came home depleted. And people always are giving me mixed signals instead of just being straightforward. Like, I don't care if you don't want to hurt my feelings, just hurt my feelings and be straightforward and be honest. So we can move past this because I have other things to do. I'm already going to be ruminating on this for probably 2 weeks to months. So yeah, this is why I just strongly dislike working for people. And even with school, it's become frustrating, but at least I have accommodations and I live super close to my school and I can just come home. And right now I'm only taking like one in-person class. And the rest are online or like independent study classes. So it's manageable for me, but it's took a while for me to figure out. I'm not equipped to going to school, to a university that is overstimulating and big. There's all these rules, all these people, all these energies, all these interactions. Um, that I have to digest the information from. I can't do that every day. I can't even do that 3 days a week. I tried. Okay. Once a week is great for me. It's worth it to take care of yourself and accommodate yourself because nobody else is going to do it for you, especially if you're overstimulated. And I want to say that accommodations are not special treatment, they're access. And even the amount of accommodations we get doesn't balance out the world, the neurotypical world that we live in, especially for autistic women. I feel like masking gets praised as maturity. Like, I've always gotten, you're so mature for your age and you're so wise and blah, 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 blah. But that's also ableism, just so you know. Because when someone performs fine, no one asks if they're drowning. Nobody really cares if you're doing your job well and you're doing good. It doesn't matter that my mom passed away. It doesn't matter that after I leave work or I leave school, I have all these doctor appointments to try to figure out what's going on with me, and um nobody cares that I'm at work trying my best even though I'm like in so much digestive pain. My pain perception is crazy. You know, that's annoying to me. Also, there's something else that's always overlooked, and that is my body. Um Autistic sensory processing applies internally to um pain feels amplified, hormonal shifts feel super intense, stress settles very, very deeply into my gut, into my bones, into my muscles, into my nervous system, and it causes a lot of health issues. And there's been times where I've been at the hospital and they're like, we didn't really find anything wrong and blah blah blah, and I'm just like, well, something is wrong. Or like, well, we can just give you medication. At this point, I'll take anything. I'm not even gonna lie. But there's just so many underlying factors that I didn't realize this whole journey that is rooted in my autistic sensory. I just want to let y'all know, like, chronic overstimulation literally activates the stress response repeatedly over and over and over and over again as someone who is autistic. That impacts digestion, inflammation, sleep, um, anything you could think of. Eyesight. Is crazy what stress does. And I'm realizing now that my health issues weren't random. I've always been to the hospital at the most overstimulating, stressful times in my life. And even though I might look okay, when I'm not, I'm not. So I've learned to be more vocal about how I feel, instead of just like bottling things up because that's how I was taught to do things. Yeah, so all this time, and I still think even now, like, my health issues were rooted in nervous system overload. I have a very sensitive nervous system, and a lot of autistic people do. Got a lot more things going on in the noggin, sensory wise, and in the amygdala, sensory wise, than the average neurotypical person. This is scientifically proven. Do your research. I hate how we have to explain ourselves for existing, but I hyperfixate on foods. And sometimes those foods aren't good for me, but they make me feel comfortable. And my brain is just like, I need to eat the same thing today. You can ask my partner. He'd be like, you need to relax. We got this for 2 weeks straight. I'm like, I don't care. This is all I need in my life. I can eat this every day. And then I'm like, oh, I don't feel good. I feel sick. I think I had too much sodium and sugar. It's a cycle, y'all. It is a cycle I am trying to break. But it's hard because when you have a good food, it just grounds you and your nervous system feels good and you're more likely to be consistent with eating, because executive functioning, you're not going to see me cooking every day. Simple, is the way to go. Simple and convenient. And I also think for a lot of autistic people, eating the same thing every day makes you feel safe. And I've been doing this since I was a child, and I just never realized that was a autism thing. I just ate a burger that this fly was trying to eat, and it was good. And I'm gonna have another one today. And I'll probably go get more burgers because all I want are burgers right now. Until I possibly get high cholesterol or high blood pressure. I'm like, oh my god, I probably should stop eating this. But until then, I'm going to enjoy it. Eventually, there gets to a point where I hyperfixate and then I just can't tolerate it anymore. I hate when I get to that point because I'm like, you didn't have to overdo it, but you did. You didn't have to overdo it, but you did. And I really hate when it gets to that point. And that is sensory processing as well. Another autism thing that I didn't know was a autism thing that I've always been doing is like I bond with objects and I personify objects. I bond with my rocks because they're grounding, stable, predictable. Everything is having a conversation with me, like my plants, my guitar be like, play me. You haven't played me in forever. My pillows would be like, I know you wanna sleep, baby girl. Just lay your head down on my pillow. Oh, lay your head down, baby. So it's just like, that's my world. I talk to my plants as well. They're beautiful. You wanna know why though? Because objects, they don't judge you. Sometimes they do. But I think that's just me judging myself. But anyways, all in all, I don't feel like objects judge me. They don't gaslight me. Plants don't mock me. These aren't necessarily childish behaviors, which they could look like depending on your perspective. And if so, I'm glad my inner child is still intact and compared to some folks. But I just think that it's simply just regulation. I'm gonna get this bug. Get it. These behaviors, they might seem childish, and I'd be damned even if I let my childhood die just because I'm 26 currently. But I'm glad my inner child is still intact and I'm able to still find joy and goofiness in the things today, and I don't think that'll ever die. And if people think that's childish, then oh well, I don't really care, because for me it is regulating. I feel like autism runs on high resolution. So the things that should be blurred in my range is just not blurred. It's always there and I'm picking up on everything. But all in all, like, high resolution requires care just as much as low resolution do. Living life in high resolution, there's a little extra things you gotta pay attention to, unfortunately. Also, I'm gonna go into grief and ableism really quick, because I feel like when I was diagnosed, it didn't just solve anything for me. Getting diagnosed didn't suddenly make my relatives understand me. I still receive ableist jokes, underhanded remarks, and even once when I had told my mom, I thought that I was on the spectrum, she was just like, "You're not an effing Riri." And she just shut down all curiosity, and I was just like, well, damn, you didn't have to say it like that. But all to say is, like, ableism looks like dismissal most of the time. Being dismissed my whole life made me really understand that, like, oh, okay, this is gonna be the norm. But also, this is autistic thing as well, because, you know, even people that I knew that had disabilities were often dismissed. My relatives are busy, but that hasn't really changed since childhood, even though I let them know that I found out I had the tism, but I'm still gonna rhythm with the tism. Anyways, still as a child and still now, no relative has really changed or cared enough to really try to understand me. And I feel like that brought up a lot more grief too, because my mom isn't here and who knows how she would have responded. I feel like it makes the grief for familial love deeper for me. But I am entering a new chapter where I can choose my supports, choose and embody my self-love and what that looks like to me. And thank goodness for my partner, because he really tries and puts an effort to understand me and me being autistic, and he still encourages my strengths, holds space for me when I'm overwhelmed, helps me when executive functioning collapses. I'm saying this all to say, if you feel like very alone and nobody gets you on your autistic journey, there's people who do. And sometimes it's rare. It's not a large amount of people, but there is support out there for you. And sometimes support doesn't come from blood. It's unfortunate to say, but it is true. It is true. So I don't necessarily grieve being autistic, but I do grieve not being supported by my own blood. But I can't change my neurological makeup. No matter if they don't believe it or not, or they don't try to understand it, I got the diagnosis. This is not something that I was like, oh, I think I have it because I fit the category. Because I'm not one of those people. I don't like just labeling myself. I don't like even using the label of autistic. But here I am. I don't get to change my neurological makeup. I've been loving myself more now. Learning more about my autism, and I still feel like I have so much more to learn, but I realize that I cannot change my neurological makeup, and I don't necessarily need to either. Like, I'm perfect the way that I am. I'm just different, and when you're different, you're not very supported in certain systems. Some of the things that I have been doing to feel more safe within myself and accommodate myself is noise blockers. I'll be right back. Earplugs, like all the time. I have a pair for at home for when I'm sleeping because my ears are just very hypersensitive, and it's one of the biggest roots of my anxiety and not being grounded. So I have these. I believe they're called loops. I would say they're a little bit pricey for earplugs, but they work, and I would recommend getting this string because you will lose them. This is not my first pair. It's not even my second. I think it's like my fourth. So just know you will lose them. But they are a lifesaver, y'all. They are a lifesaver. If I had to leave the house, I would choose this. If I don't have headphones or something to listen to that I feel grounds me, of course. Obviously, nom noms. Nom noms are safe foods, and making sure you're eating something is so important as someone with autism, because we already be forgetting to eat as is. So make sure you have something that's simple, that's good for you, that makes you feel good, that you can eat often and conveniently. Make food for yourself. I know it can be hard, but you got to make sure you're eating. You'll feel so much better. Other thing is cozy items, like obviously say yip yip and I'll take you on a ride, okay? I'm just saying, like, the cool hoodies, the cozy. I got these like cozy foot socks, toe socks. It's weird feeling each of my toes, but it's also grounding, and I feel like it helps me stretch my toes out a little bit more. But it feels so good, so it's been really cozy to wear, as well. You'll find things that work really good for you that make you feel cozy. Cozies are my must-have items. Crystals make me feel cozy. A hoodie and oversized t-shirts, something that's cotton, not polyester, something that's not itchy. Jewelry makes me feel cozy sometimes. Rings, I love rings. If I don't wear rings, my life feels off. Teddy bears, playing cozy games, reading a cozy book, doing artwork. I advocate for step by step clarity in classroom settings and even just the real adulthood world when I'm setting up appointments, when I'm having interactions with people and I don't quite understand things. I advocate for myself more and I use my voice and I ask questions. I don't care what other people think about the questions that I ask. What's the first step? What does done look like? I need specifics and I'll be a happy camper. Clarity is access to me. Another thing that I've been doing is I've been reading some autism books and workbooks that go with it while also like watching some like YouTube creators. But let me share over here some of the workbooks that I really like that I do recommend. This one is the one that I started off with. This is the Autistic Burnout Workbook. It really helped me understand what burnout looks like to me. Also, once again, spoon theory, nervous system regulation, masking, sensory self-care. If you're new to the game, you just got your diagnosis, this is like a must-have book because it helps you understand yourself. I have this burnout workbook as well. This is less autism, but just like more burnout in general. And I do like some of the exercises it has in here. I think I'll probably share some of these in the future. But one of the best things it has in here is that the game is rigged. Especially if you got the autism, just know you live in a rigged system and a rigged game. So don't feel bad. Don't feel upset because you don't fit in, because things are rigged. So just learn how to play the game in your own way. The last two books that I have here, this one is great. The Neurodivergent Skills Workbook for Autism and ADHD, because your girl got ADHD too, and that combined together is just chaotic. Also, this is important too. This is the Unmasking Autism Workbook for autistic adults. I feel like a lot of autism things are about children, so it's great to have stuff for adults who are just like getting late diagnoses like I am. And I love this one because it's so informative and it's based off of like research and based off of autistic people, and the author is autistic. So also this is not necessarily autism book, but I would say it's helpful. It's called the Intuitive Eating. It's called the Intuitive Eating Workbook because we already got issues with executive functioning, and I don't have a healthy relationship with food, and I think most autistic people don't. It's mostly about support, comfort, and consistency and feeling safe with food than it is necessarily about health. So this book has been helping me to understand intuitively what my body needs and still be able to make something healthy that's good for myself. It'd be kind of hard. But if you're someone with autism and you have gut health issues and digestive issues, I would highly recommend you check out this book. And workbooks help me a lot. You definitely have to take the time to do them. And so obviously I haven't finished every single one of them, duh. But create your own personal curriculum for your diagnosis and your needs, because you have to do the research, you have to put in the effort for yourself, you have to advocate for yourself once again, and that looks different to everybody. But this one is a simple little handbook called Autism for Adults, once again. This is a handbook. This is not a workbook, but it's very simple and straightforward. Autism in the Workplace, revealing the honest truth of autistic employment. Some of it be like a bit harsh because we're like, damn, this is where we live in, but we know this. I think it's important to understand what it means to be a sensitive person and that there is power in being sensitive and intuitive and perceptive and having pattern recognition. So this is also a great book that I recommend. Sensitive by Jen Grainman and Andre Solo, however you say it, I don't know. There's so many other resources out there, book-wise and workbook-wise, and I'm sure you can find journal prompts and stuff on Pinterest, but these are just some things that I have. Also, don't overwhelm yourself with so many things because it's unlikely that you'll be able to get through all of them. You'll probably just spaz out because you've overdone it, and then your executive functioning will hit in, and then you're back to square one where you started. So, simplicity is key, my loves. Understanding regulation to you as an autistic person is important, because my regulation and your regulation are going to look different. And I'm starting to learn more and more every day what I need to regulate myself, whether that is sitting with Hape, sitting in prayer, doing breath works, practicing Reiki, gardening, playing a video game, doing art. There's so many things. Another thing that I do more is I stim in a safe space. I'm still trying to figure out other ways to stim publicly, but I must have some type of composure. And some of my stims be doing the most. And I feel like for me, letting myself be goofy and do weird things with my body and make weird sounds is like stimming for me. So my partner gets to enjoy all of that randomness. That is also stimulation for me too. So I do honor rest when I absolutely have to. Sometimes I have to force myself, or sometimes I just have to wait until I crash. We're working on it. But once again, you'll figure out what works for you. It is maintenance. You are maintenance. You gotta take care of yourself. It is like a must have. And I'm learning also to like transmute my overstimulation into something creative. I feel like that helps me ground a lot. Like I create a lot of different things that I've shared in my other posts. I do nature walks. I do yoga. Pole dancing is really helpful for me to release physically. Music, one-on-one time with someone safe that I've call it a close friend. Stop trying to fit in. Because even if you find a autistic space, you still might not feel like you fit in because we are all so different. So just learn to accept yourself and be authentically you. And know that autism doesn't make you any less, it just makes you more specific to your needs. And that specificity requires alignment. So once again, I was diagnosed at 25 years young. I would like to say it's late, but it's not. I feel like it's right on time because I'm in a much more safer space and I don't have to prove anything to anybody. My home is safe now. And I'm not trying to fix myself. I'm just meeting myself where I'm at. And how would you ever know where to meet yourself if you didn't know? If you are like thinking about getting a diagnosis, maybe you just got to do it just to bring you some clarity so you can meet yourself deeper and love yourself more and more and more. So if you are neurotypical, I just want to say autism doesn't always look like stereotypes. Sometimes it looks like the strong one, the quiet one, the overthinker. We're not trying to be difficult. We're just trying to be understood. We're trying to regulate more than be understood, honestly. So give other people space to process. Stop using autism as a punchline or like everybody is a little autistic. Autism is a trend. Also, have you guys ever thought that, sure, it could be a trend, or maybe people are just feeling more safe to be who they are, and they're learning more about themselves more now than ever in history. And curiosity will take you way farther than trying to correct someone for being who they are just and questioning their needs. So just don't do that. Support changes lives. So support someone who's different than you today or tomorrow. Dismissal also deepens wounds. So the more you dismiss people who have different neurotypes than you, just know that this deepens a wound for someone who is innocent and just existing in their own life experience. Once again, I was diagnosed at 25. I'm not broken. I'm wired differently. And now I'm living like it. So, yeah. Thank you all for staying tuned. If you made it this far, you guys get a little sneak peek of a song I wrote about feeling like I don't fit in and like I always have to hold people up and meet people, but nobody's willing to meet me. I'm not gonna lift you up for you to break me down. I'm not gonna lift you up for you to break me down. I've been through this so many times, you know this. I've been through this so many times, you know this. You won't communicate before it's too late. You won't communicate before it's too late. I'm not gonna build you up for you to bring me down. I'm not gonna build you up for you to break me down. 'Cause I've been through this so many times, you know that.